this video tutorial, we would like to show you how to create a custom ntopng plugin, because plugins are the main innovation of the latest ntopng release 4.0. With plugins, you can do many things and you can extend ntopng into many ways. For example, you can create custom actions when a certain flow is detected or when a certain behavior of an host is detected. You can add the custom pages. You can do many things. In this presentation, we are going to create a flow plugin that basically detects every single HTTP flow which attempts at downloading an executable file. So, ntopng on the one hand processes all the packets, sees all the HTTP traffic, and we would like to write a plugin that detects when an executable file is transferred, and we would like to create alert and to detect these events. So how can we do? Let's see basically the procedure which is necessary to create a flow plugin. So here I'm working using the ntopng sources, but you can create plugins even if you're working on a packaged binary version of ntopng, so it's independent from this. Let's start and create a directory which will contain our plugin files that are basically Lua scripts. I would like to create I would like to create a directory under scripts plugins, and I'm going to call this directory x's download, because that should have a name which is representative for the plugin that we are going to create. Alright, we create mkdir. So now that we have created this directory, we can add what we have called a user script. A user script flow. Remember that we said that we want to detect flows that are downloading executable files. So we are going to create a flow user script. So something, a Lua script, that is going to perform certain actions on flows. So we create this second directory, user script flow, and we can start at this point editing the actual user script file, which contains the actions our plugin is going to perform. So let's see how can we write a user script file which is part of the plugin. I've given this user script a name again, which is x's download, because this name is representative, one more time, to the actions this user script is going to perform. So let's have a look at this one. What is a flow user script, which is part of a plugin? Well, it's basically a very simple Lua file. Here we have less than 50 lines, including comments, and it has basically a Lua table called local script, which contains certain keys that we are going to see in a while. And this local script table is and actually must be returned at the end of this script. So what are the keys which are necessary to be present in this table? First of all, we have a category that for this plugin I have set to security, because downloading executable files over HTTP, executable files they can be unsafe, they can contain malware, so security is the right category for this script. You can find all the available categories in this table under user script categories. Then we have a boolean which says default enabled, that we can set, for example, to false or true, depending on whether we want to have these plugin enabled by default or disabled by default. Then we have a table called hooks that we are going to discuss in a while. And finally, we have a table called GUI, Graphical User Interface. This GUI contains a title and a descriptions that ntopng will use to show this plugin user script into the graphical web user interface. And we are going to see this thing in a while. Let's go back to the hooks for a while. Hooks are a way for ntopng to know when to execute this particular user script on flows. So there are several hooks available for flows. One hook is protocol detected, another hook is periodic update, status changed, and flow end. I mean, you can find documentation on these hooks, but basically hooks tells certain points in the life cycle of the flows so that ntopng will call the user script at that point in the life cycle of the flow. So in these hooks, for these plugins, we are going to define hook protocol detected. So what is a hook? A hook is basically a function. See here, function scripts.hooks.protocol detected. So with this syntax, we are basically adding a protocol detected key into this hooks table. ntopng will read this plugin and will call this function protocol detected as soon as it detects the protocol of every active flow it has. Alright, so what are the actions that we can do inside this function? Well, first of all, we create a local table called http info, which is assigned to the result of flow.getHttpInfo. Look at this, flow.something. This is how the plugins interact with the ntopng core. Using flow.something, the plugin is actually asking the ntopng core, I want to have this information of this particular flow. So flow dot gives the plugin something back from the core to the plugin. In this example, we do flow.getHttpInfo. So basically, we are asking the ntopng core that we want to have the HTTP information of every flow. You know, not all the flows are HTTP, so this information will be populated only for HTTP flow. And this is why here we check using if HTTP info and HTTP info last URL. So we check this local table because we want to make sure this table is not nil, because this table is nil for non-HTTP flows. So if we are here now, we are inside every HTTP flow that ntopng has detected. Remember the objective of the plugin. We want to detect HTTP flows that are downloading executable files. So here we use a very simple regular expression that matches the text.exe into the last URL of the flow, because this HTTP info gives us for HTTP flows gives us all the HTTP information, including the return code, the URL requested, the type of request, if it's a GET or a POST or something else, along other information. So now here we are interested into the last URL because we want to see if that URL contains an executable. So we see .exe. So if this condition is true, now here we are in an HTTP flow that contains an executable file into the URL. What can we do now? Well, for this example, we can, for the moment, just write a line to the command line. So we create this local variable line that contains the last URL detected and a label for the flow. And we simply write the line to the command line with io.write line. So everything is ready for our plugin to start functioning. Let's see. So let's see what happens. We can start our ntopng now. So here we are starting our ntopng. Now let me show you where we can find and control this plugin from the user interface. Let me pick again plugin exists download. Alright, MX plugins scripts plugins exist user script flow. Alright, let me go into the ntopng web user interface. So where can we find our plugin? We can just go to settings, user scripts, and then we can pick the N3 flows, because remember we have created a plugin with a flow user script. Remember the path here, we have user script flow because we have created a flow user script. So we expect to find this user script under these flows entry. We pick the edit for flows and we'll look into the enabled plugins, and as you can see here we have the X's download and it detects X downloaded via HTTP. If you look at this string and this string, they are the very same strings that we have written into the plugin file. So nothing really fancy, things are pretty easy. You write something here and you find these things into the command line, into the user interface. This is the category, and you can also view or disable the plugin. If you want to disable it, you click disable and it's going to go into the disable tab and it's not going to be executed. So everything is up and running. ntopng has read our plugin is enabled. So let's see what happens if we download a file, if we download an executable file. For this, I have prepared a simple curl. This is an installer.exe. This is a safe Notepad++ installer, so nothing dangerous. But just to show you this example, we can download this using curl, and just as soon as ntopng detects this download, it prints out to the command line. It prints out. Remember, here we have our line string.format last URL colon space blah blah blah, and if we look at the output of the command line, here we have last URL comma colon space blah blah blah, and this is the exact URL that we have downloaded from here. So what happens? It happens that we hit enter in curl. This machine, this host, starts downloading the file, and ntopng monitors all the packets. It detects the HTTP traffic. It dissects all the contents, including this URL, and it calls our plugin with the dissected information. And our plugin at this point is able to look into the dissected information for the suffix .exe and print this line to the command line. So we can do one more time this. Just wait 1, 2, 3 seconds, even less, and bam, you have this plugin that prints this line out to the command line. Well, this is a pretty good way to demonstrate what you can do with a plugin, but just printing out a line to the command line is not that useful because we don't like to spend a lot of time just looking at that. Let's see how we can create alerts so that they can appear in the ntopng graphical user interface. We not only want to create alerts, but we also want to create flow statuses that can be associated to flows so that we can browse the ntopng web interface and pick flows and download things, hit download, and we can create flow statuses so that we can drill down flows by status, for example. Alright, let's see how we can create custom flow status and custom alerts to be triggered with this plugin. It's pretty easy. Again, we just need to create 2 more directories. One is called status definition, the other one is called alert definitions. And those 2 directories contains status definitions contains a simple Lua file which is called status.exe download. This status.exe download is just a very simple file which basically just returns a Lua table return, and this table contains a title and a description for the flow status. Those 2 strings are going to appear into the ntopng user interface, as we are going to see in a while. In addition, since we want to create alerts using this status, we need 2 additional keys here. One is called alert severity, which is error in this particular example. You can find all the available severities if you look at these alert severities table into alert consts, and then you have an alert type that we want to be an alert exe download. So how can we define this particular alert? Well, we define this particular alert in the other directory that we have created earlier. So we have alert definitions, and then we have alert exe download.lua. This alert, again, it's a very simple Lua file which contains just a title and an icon that we have chosen to be an exclamation mark. So now this status.exe download uses the alert that we have defined here, and it knows this alert as the name of the file of the alert definition is the same string that we have used here for the alert type. Alright, so let me reopen these. Let's see now how can we modify our plugin so that it can actually trigger alerts and set flow statuses. That it's the only way to make the plugin really useful. So we go back to our plugin user script flow exes download. We go back to our function, and this time we need to call a very simple function that I have prepared here. This function is called flow.triggerStatus. Remember, as we are using this flow.something, we are interacting with the ntopng core, and we are asking the ntopng core trigger status. We want to trigger a status, so we want to change the flow status into something which tells this flow is downloading an exe file, and we also want to trigger an alert on it. And indeed, the first parameter of this trigger status is the status exe download. This status is the very same status that we have created 1 minute ago here. So look at the name. The name of the file here, status exe download, is the string that is also reported here in the status type. Then we pass the HTTP info, but this is a general info, so it's generic. You can pass a generic table here. And then we also pass 3 scores. The score is an indication, is a metric that we have created that gives an indication of how relevant is a particular flow or a particular host from a security point of view. The higher the score, the higher the issues associated to that particular flow or to that particular host. So this time here we have chosen to pick a score of 100 for this flow and 100 for the client, because it's the client that is potentially having an issue here, because the client is downloading. We don't really care about the server that is serving the exe file. We care more about the client. So we set a flow score of 100 for the server, for the flow for the client, and 10 for the server. We can save these, start again our ntopng instance, and I'm going to show you immediately now what happens into the ntopng web user interface now that we have prepared a plugin that not only detects the download of executable, but it also set flow statuses and creates alerts on these. So let's see what happens again. We can go to the web user interface again, and now let's see what happens if we curl one more time this. I would expect to see the same text here, output here, right? But now I would expect also to find this flow here. Here we are. Here we have a status exe download, and we have our flow, the very exact flow that we have downloaded now shows up as alerted. You see that the flow has downloaded an executable file, which is the very same text we have written here. Flow has downloaded an executable file, and you have the flow score of 100, that this is the number we have set here. And you can see from this page the very same URL that has been requested. You see URL, and this is the very same installer.exe that we have also printed to the command line. So it's pretty powerful as an approach, because as soon as ntopng detects the exe download, it creates an alert and it gives you all the flow information that has caused this alert to be triggered. But now the point is that this is live information, so a download is going to disappear in a few seconds and in a few minutes. And we don't really want to lose this information. We want to preserve the history of all the flows that have been downloading others, executable files. And indeed, as we can see from this badge, we see this flow is no longer active. But it's not a big deal, because since we have generated an alert, the generated alert is going to become available under the flow alert. So you're not going to lose alerts because you can browse the flow alerts, pick the type exe download, and you are going to find all the executables that have been downloaded. You see the client, the server, the application, and also the actually the actual URL that has been downloaded. So that's pretty powerful because with just a very few lines, less than 100 lines of Lua code, we have created a plugin that interacts with the ntopng core. It detects executable files exchanged over HTTP, and it creates and sets flow statuses and flow alerts straight into the ntopng. So I hope that I have given a nice overview of how powerful these plugins can be, and you can really extend the ntopng core as you like. And remember, there are many other things that you can do. You can, for example, the strings are hard coded. You can set localization strings so that they can be translated into languages: English, French, German, and whatever. You can create custom actions on not only on flows but also on hosts, SNMP devices, networks, and so on. But I believe this is pretty okay as a first introduction of what you can do with the plugins.